by revisiting the very end of the chapter here. I think we left off trying to calculate FIT withholding. So why don't you go ahead and pull out your books and see if we can do one more together, and then we'll move forward. So if you recall, there's two sets of tables, right? Percentage and wage bracket. Wage bracket is used for lower and middle income folks. Once you get high income, you have to go to percentage. The first thing you have to go to page T2, right? And find the withholding allowance. And, I guess maybe if I had data up here, that'd be helpful. You guys are all just looking at me. I'm like, what are you looking at?
There we go.
Here we go. So married with four, so you've got to go to the allowance tables and figure out the number of allowances times 4, subtract that from the 485, and then calculate the FIT. Please. Okay, so what do we have to do first? Figure out how much each check is. Okay. Second step, subtract the withholding allowances. So that's the number we take to the tables. And I think we're on table 4B. Is that correct? Okay, and then we're just translating the verbiage, the words, to an algebraic equation. So FIT equals 4659.07 plus, then it says 35% of the excess over this number. Excess of what? Just pull that 19,533 straight down into the equation. And then you kind of work it right to left, don't you? It's the easiest way. You want to see have the parentheses all lined up. Okay. There's, I think, 2 more examples on here that we didn't work, so you're free to practice more if you'd like. Okay, supplemental wages. We talked about these last week. So these are the things like the retroactive pay, the severance pay, commissions. And what's tricky about this is there's different ways to withhold federal income tax on them. So I'm just going to explain the different methodologies. So the first one is, say that my regular paycheck's $3,000 and I have $500 of retroactive pay because they just signed a contract and it's retro back to August 15th. They throw that 500 on top of the 3,000 and just tax it by going to the tables, right? What's the problem with that? Say at the University of Montana, we've got 650 professors. And when we sign our contract or get our contract negotiated, what's the problem from a payroll processing standpoint of going back and doing that with 647 people? You've got to go in and change your salary in every single person's field, don't you? And then you have to hope you get it back to the right salary for the next ride. Okay? It's a lot of work.
Look at those different taxes when that money
Could be. I've never, I guess had that question asked or thought about it, but it could be, and then there would be, there would be some vacillation there too. So you can do that, and if you've got a small company with 3 people, that's probably what you're going to do. You're just going to go in and add their retroact or their commission or their bonus or their severance pay onto their regular paycheck, calculates that using percentage tables or withholding tables, and off she goes. But in a lot of situations, we just use this flat withholding, 25%. You cut a separate check, or we indicate it clearly on the pay stub that here's the regular wages and here's the supplemental. And we withhold 25% for fit and 3% for sit. And then that number jumps way up if you're cutting a check for over $1 million. Oh, let me see here. Or lastly, you can just cut them a completely separate paycheck and do a flat 25-3. So does everybody understand the choices? Right? I put it with the regular check and just go to the tables. I put it with the regular check, but I clearly have it outlined on the pay stub. Regular paycheck goes to the tables. Supplemental gets 25% and 3%. Or I just completely cut a different check and flat 25-3. One more time. 3% is set for sit in Montana and 25% is fed.
Because I'm looking for that information on here, and I'm like,
No, it's not on there because these slides go up to all 50 states. So I can't put anything about Montana specific on
that's
them.
just what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, so I'll throw in things about Montana, but some states don't have income tax. Okay, next issues. This is a little tricky, so stick with me here. So, say it's bonus time, and y'all work for me, and you've done great, and you've had an awesome year, and I want you to each have $1,000 to thank you. If I cut you each $1,000 check, is everybody going to bring home the same amount from that $1,000? How come? Yeah, you're married with 3, and she's single with 0, and you've capped on your 127 for OESCI. So everybody's all over the place, right? What happens if I want you to have the $1,000? I'm starting with the net paycheck, and I need to work up to a gross. See what I'm saying?
So you figure out what you're.
I've got to figure out the bottom number and then work up the calculation. Normally we start with the gross and we move down, right? This is exactly opposite. Or, yeah, it's always more. Or I'm giving you a benefit, like we talked about, like I'm paying for your country club memberships, or I'm paying for your car. And now you're going to owe taxes on that, so I'm grossing up your tax bill, so it's truly a no-cost benefit to you.
So you're basically paying the taxes for that money, or the opposite. Yeah.
So the way this works, I'm going to show you on our little flex cam here, guy, because that's easier to use. So let's just say that in this example, find the camera calculator here, we want to give you a check, a net check, equal to $500, right? I want you guys to each have $500. So I'm going to walk you through the steps. Here's what you do. You write out your calculation just like you always do for a paycheck. Right? What number do I know in this calculation? Yeah, it's all the way down here, isn't it? So I have to gross up. So the next thing I do is let's just pencil in the percentages for each of those taxes. So you have to ask me some questions before we can do that. We're going to do flat supplemental rates.
The amount.
Well, I'm just going to do the flat rate. I'm just going to do 25 to 3.
What's that called again?
Supplemental rates, yep. So the fit is 25 and the sit is 3. What else do you need to ask me? Have you capped on the OASDI? I have. I've already made $400,000 this year. So, but I still get, or not 400,000 because then we've got the 0.9. I've made 130,000 before today. My point is, you've got to figure out what your rates are. If you're not in Montana, you're not going to have a pencil in per set. If you haven't capped, you got to put the 0.062. If you've made over 250, you got to add the 0.009. So you have to think about what the rates are in here.
So here's a question though, because if you calculate all of those on 500 and then you do the gross.
Stick with me here, you're going to see it.
Okay.
So add up the taxes, add up the percentages. What chunk of the check are these taxes going to take? Yep, taxes equal 0.2945. So therefore, after taxes, what percentage is going to be left for the actual net paycheck? So if my net paycheck is 100% and 0.2945 is going to taxes, my net paycheck is going to be 70.55% of the gross, right? Gross minus taxes equals net. Any idea? Now I've got all the math that I need to plug. Go ahead. Very, very good. That's exactly what I have to do. $500 is 70.55% of some number. That's my X. That's my gross. Solve for the gross and then multiply it out by the taxes and prove that once you get that gross number and take out 1.45, 1.25, 1.03, that you're going to get down to 3%. Or I'm sorry, you're going to get down to $500. Barry, you have a question? So the issue is that once if the tax is taken out, only a percentage is going to be left for my paycheck. So 100% minus the taxes equals what percent is left. This is the one that we divide. Yes, ma'am.
I was really lost at this saying it. The ones?
Yeah,
Is
100%
Is it hard?
minus the tax rates.
It's a minus.
Down here,
Taxes.
applicable tax rates. That's that calculation you're looking at right there. is this right here. What page is that?
Page 420. You combined all the.
Yep. Yep, I added those all up, yep.
It's the one I moved.
That's 100%. So gross, well, 100% is 1.00.
One hundred percent, okay, so 1 minus that percent would give me the amount I need to tack on.
Yeah, it's the same thing as saying this. Oh, can't see that.
Okay, gives us the percentage that we would then add to 500.
Well, gross up to B. So we're solving for X here, right? That is our gross. And then you can prove it to yourself, you guys. Because the 708.72 is my gross paycheck, 1.45 of that goes to HI, 0.25 of that goes to FIT, 0.03 of that goes to SIT. So when you do the multiplication, does it all come down to $500?
Yeah.
Okay, so how much was my HI?
10.8.
And FIT? And SIT? 0.6? So, and then when you go through all that, if you're off by a penny or something, just adjust one of the taxes. Now, calculate the 941 deposit for this person. Oh, let me just make it a little more interesting. So I've got 3 employees. I just did this for all of them.
Are they all capped on
They're all capped. What's the 941 deposit? They all look just like this. Just for this check. Good question, but yeah, it's mostly, I'm just saying, just shoot me the number for this check. Just a sec, let me get there. So here's FICA, right? Employee plus employer, FICA, FIT. All of it gets taken times 3.
Oh, you did know on that right there. Then what I should be good.
Yeah, I did it the other way too.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I figured out all the numbers and then add them.
It's all gonna come to the same thing. FICA, FIT for 1 check, and then I multiply it by 3 checks. Okay, let's go back and do a quick reinforce on the PowerPoint, and then we'll move on. And I'm recording this if you need to go back and see it at a slower pace. Okay, now let's do, oh, what happened there? What did happen there? Okay, why don't you guys do this for my buddy Doug? He doesn't live in Montana, and he hasn't capped. $700, he doesn't live in Montana, and he hasn't capped for OASD. So basically, I've told you everything you need to know. He's not in Montana and he hasn't capped. So we know we've got 6.2. we always got 1.45, and for federal, we always use 0.25 unless it's over $1 million.
So he's not in that category, I guess.
Well, look, if we're only giving him $700. If the check was $1 million or more,
Oh,
then
the
you,
check?
yeah. So it's like, you know, I own my own auto dealership and I bonus myself out a year and they take a couple $1 million out, I've done it with 1.393 instead. SIP is 0.25 and SIP is 0.03, but that's only if I tell you he's in Montana.
Right, so what is the percentage?
You assume if I tell you it's not Montana, you're not going to use SIP.
Not going to do it at all.
No, because we're not going to learn what states have SIP. Like, I don't know.
Sure. But we pretend to live in Washington.
Sure, yeah, state with no tax, or income tax. So his taxes this time, what was the total tax burden? No, the taxes came to 0.3265, right? So what was left over for the paycheck? Yeah. That's really the key to it, is getting, and then once you have that number, you just take the net divided by that percentage and it grosses it up. Do you understand why we do this? So then you all get $700 checks, it doesn't matter. Because I told you they weren't on Montana. So I gotta tell you that. No, you're fine. Okay. Now, and the answer's on the slide. I know I'm kind of going fast, but we'll reinforce some of this on Wednesday before the quiz, but I really want to get through everything today. Okay, the next thing I want to go through is I'm going to ask you to take your notebooks, kind of put them sideways. I'm going to go through a flow chart of all of the documentation for informational returns. In other words, all the payroll tax returns you have to submit to the IRS and how it all ties together. If you've ever had a job, you know what a W-2 is, right? The year-end statement, it reports all of your wages and your withholdings. Let's kind of go through these. Here's what it looks like. When you're done, so you all work for me, I cut all your W-2s. I have to put a W-3 on the top, the transmittal form, and send it to the, where do I send it? Actually, it goes to the Social Security office. It's the primary purpose of it is to enter our data for pension calculations, but it also is used to cross-check your taxes. Okay. All four of the 941s that we have been doing quarterly have got to equal the W-3. Because 4 quarters equal the whole year, right? So before you send that W-3 up, you better run a tape over it, make sure your 941s equal it, or it's all going to just get kicked back. There's either an error in your 941s or an error in your W-2s and your W-3. And whichever it is, you better figure it out before you send it to the IRS, or you're gonna have a bunch of correspondence with them. Okay, let's just take a look. I think it's easier to do it over here. Okay, so here's how it goes. At the end of the year, I file, well, every quarter, what do I file? 941. And my 941 reports what? Yeah, quarterly what? Wages and withholding, right? FIT, FICA match, right? No state taxes on it. So 4 times a year. Then I come down here, and at the end of the year, annually, I filed W-2s. And there's actually 6 of these. 5, sorry. 6 copies. And the transmittal is the W-3, which is the total of all the W-2s. Sorry? What? Transmittal just means it's a piece of paper that transmits something. Yeah. No, it's not through a fax. This is all electronic now, but I'm just trying to give you a visual of where all this stuff goes. Because forever it was paper. So the original W-2 and the W-3 goes to the Social Security Administration. Yeah. The next copy goes to the Montana Department of Revenue. Again, in Montana. So they get a copy of all of the W-2s, and in Montana, the transmittal is called an MW3 for obvious reasons, Montana W-3. So now both of the taxing agencies have all the documents. The next 2 go to the employee, to you. You either go to your mailbox and you get them, or if you're on a secure encrypted website like we've got at the University of Montana, I just go pull my W-2 off of the computer, right? And I use that for my taxes. And then the last copy I keep as the employer. What do you guys do with the copies you get? File where? Don't you use it to do your 1040, your tax return? And in Montana, our Montana tax return is called an MT2. And if you make money and you live here and you comply with the law, you've seen both these forms. Okay. So and then the whole scoop of this, as I said earlier, your W-3 has got to equal your 4 941s, which makes sense. Annual wages, annual withholding has to equal what you filed before. Okay, so that all gets filed. Oh, when does that have to all happen by? Jan 31.
Well, that's when it needs to be sent to, or sent out.
This whole process has to be in the mail by 1/31. Then everything gets out there and you find an error. Holy crap, now what?
you have to correct, that's what that little C is. Something's wrong. Wages are wrong, fit was wrong, I didn't stop the cap at 127.2, I did something wrong. So I can tell you, I've seen this happen a couple times, and people are not happy because you get your W-2, you file your tax return, and then you go to the mailbox 6 weeks later, and there's a W-2C in the mail. It's like, WTF is this? Now you've got to go do what?
Where's the error bound for? Who's finding the error?
My 941s didn't match my W-3, I get a notice from the IRS, or I give all my stuff to Lisa to do my taxes, and she's like, what's going on? None of these numbers reconcile. I've had to give people that news before. So then you get a W-2C in the mail, now what? Your tax return's probably wrong. So you've got personally to do a 1040X. And for most of you, that means I've got to go find somebody and pay him to do it. So now you're doubly unhappy. Well, they're just trickier than a regular 1040. You got 3 columns, but it should have been, what it is. Yeah. I mean, they're not rocket science, but most people are look at it and go, ah. Okay. That's the flow. If you're so that's all the flow for an employee, right? So the next page is going to be what's this whole, oh, I'm sorry, and I did forget one thing. Before any of this process starts out, when you walk in the door as my new employee, what do I give you to fill out? Yeah. And that's how I know how to even start this process. Are you married? Are you single? How many allowances do you have? Are you exempt? Okay, the next one is for an independent contractor. And when you walk in the door as an independent contractor, do I get a W-4 from you? What do I get? A W-9, and the only thing a W-9 has is name, address, and social security number. I don't care how many allowances you have. I don't care if you're married or single. I don't care. I just don't care. I just want to know your name and your address and your social security number. Do I have quarterly reports from my independents? Have we learned anything about that? No? All I have to do is once a year send you a what? Yeah. $1099 MISC, miscellaneous. And in the example we're talking about here, where you've done some software development for me, or you painted my commercial building, or you trimmed my trees, or you walked my dogs, whatever, I'm going to use box 7, which is non-employee compensation. You're not my employee, but I've compensated you. And again, there's multiple copies of this, 4 of them. The originals also have a transmittal. It's called a 1096. And those go to the IRS by January 31st. Social Security doesn't care about this because it's not wages or withholding that's getting posted to my Social Security account. Did you have a question?
I was just going to say this, so you have multiple 1099s balance of all of those together.
So if you are all independent contractors for me, I'm going to tally up all your independent wages, and that's going to be on my 1096. You individually might get 1099s from a number of people. I do, I walk your dogs and I do your landscaping and I drywall your house. Lots of people do lots of things and they get 1096 all over. That all gets added up when they do their own tax return. But this, I'm just talking about, I'm a company and I'm trying to get out my W-2s and my 1099s. Any questions so far on the 1099s? Now, second copy goes to Montana Department of Revenue. Third copy goes to the independent contractor. And fourth copy goes to the issuer. I don't call them an employer because you're not an employer with independent contractors. Mm-hmm. And what does the independent contractor do with his or her copy? They don't actually have to submit them, but you use that data to do your Schedule C that shows you're a self-employed taxpayer. But you don't staple them to your tax return like you do W-2s. But I can tell you, if you do a tax return and your W-2s don't equal what you put on your tax return, it's going to come back. If your Schedule C for being self-employed doesn't at least equal in the revenue field how much your 1099s are, your tax return is going to come back. It's the cross check. Who gets a 1099? Everybody? If you came and did 2 hours work for me, would I cut you a 1099? No. There's three requirements. Anybody have any idea what any of them are? Mm-hmm. It's got to be at least $600. So if you come and you do $400 worth of work for me, I don't have to cut you a 1099. Secondly, it's only for service. It's something you did for me, not something you sold me. So if I get all my computers from you and you service them, I've got to break that out somewhere in my accounting system when you invoice me, because I don't 1099 you for the computers. That's a thing. I 1099 you for the work you did for me. That's a service. And lastly, you don't 1099 anybody that's incorporated. So for example, I'm Lisa Swallow, CPA PLLC. I'm a professional limited liability company. You would 1099, but if I was Lisa Swallow Inc., you wouldn't 1099.
So where would that be recorded?
It's not really traced right now. That's a big glaring issue. Good question. Okay. You absolutely need to know these flows. This is like the guts of what you're responsible for if you process payroll. And these are all 131 as well. Sorry, I don't know if I wrote that up there, Jan 31. That's what kicks off our whole tax system. Although stay tuned with our current administration to see what happens with taxes.
What is this whole census again? During that time, they sent us a version.
Or no?
I'm sorry, one more time.
We get from school.
Oh, 1098T.
If you have a federal loan.
1098T. Everybody gets one that shows your tuition, your scholarship, Pell Grant, work study, and that's how you calculate your higher education credits.
Okay.
1098T. And if you don't get one or you moved, you can pull it off of Cyberbear.
You know, I was just looking at mine the other day, because I was looking into the opportunity fund, and I didn't see on there where it said anything about my program. And this was and it was called a
I'll have to look at it.
1098 from
Yeah.
Cyberbear.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Have to look at it.
Maybe I'm just forgetting.
So, yeah, I would take a look at it for you.
And then the interest is like the interest rate for your loan.
That doesn't come through in a 1098T. That's separate with whoever was the underwriter for your loan. So these are the major returns filed by employers. We haven't really dealt with the 943 and 944 and 945. A 944 is if you're really, really tiny and all year long, you don't even get to $1,000, right? So you're like, you do flathead cherries 3 weeks a year or something with 5 employees. 943 is for ag employees, and a 941 is what we've been dealing with, of course. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but you can see there's tons of different kinds of 1099s. We're dealing with the 1099 miscellaneous, but the whole system is used by the IRS to track interest, dividends, sale of stock, sale of real estate, government payments like Social Security, gambling winnings. They're all traced through a 1099 system. The only one you're a pension, the only one that we're going to be overtly responsible for now is the 1099 MISC. And this is basically exactly what I just told you. Here is your 1099 MISC. And this box 7, the non-employee compensation, is where what I've been talking about would go. This particular person is a publisher and gets royalties. And when I get a little royalty check for doing these slides, that's what box it comes in. If you rent something, if you own a rental, you have a property management firm, you're going to get something in line 1, rents. You can see there's lots of different things. Fishing boat proceeds, probably Dr. Knudsen, she probably gets a ton of these with Mach 6 filled in. I mean, it's, just depends upon what the situation is. But the point is it's all being tracked. So it's got to show up on your tax return. Okay, and we know that in Montana we do have state income tax. We do not, in Missoula, have a locality with a local income tax. But for example, in Whitefish, they've got a resort tax. So if you operate in Whitefish proper, you actually have a whole nother tax return to do for Whitefish locality.
St. Regis has one in there.
Do they? St. Regis? Huh?
Maybe it will stop there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Wouldn't have thought that. Okay. So the next thing I would like to do, oh God, what happens to the time in here? It's just like accelerates. I feel like I'm talking way too fast anyways.
You're covering a lot, though.
Yeah, lots. Okay. This is the last thing that we need to talk about. I showed you this last Wednesday, and then I didn't, and I said, bring in your questions on Friday, but then I didn't ask if you had any questions. This is due on Wednesday. This is payroll practice problem number 1. And I last Wednesday said, let's talk about it on Friday. Friday came on, we never talked about it. So it's supposed to be due today, but we really do today because we didn't have a chance to ask the question. So what's it going to look like? This is going to look, not really giving you a chance to answer because we've got 80 seconds left. What it's going to look like is just like our payroll register that we're doing that continuing payroll problem, right? It's got the people up here, employee number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4, and a total. I do it on Excel. And then you're going to have your paycheck down here, right? Just like we always do. Minus all of our taxes, down to our net. Actually pretty straightforward. You know how to get the FIT now, right? Either the percentage or the wage bracket. What else? Oh, and I asked you to do the 941 deposit. I mean, you can do it by hand, but when you do it by hand, you've got 4 pages full of numbers. You really should be learning to use Excel because that's your business tool. Yes, ma'am.
So we're probably going to be using wage bracket with the 3 of them and then the percentage from the last guy.
Whatever you think. If you go to wage bracket, you do so, it's easier. Sure. Got it. Right? You only go to the percentage if you have to.
So this one's gonna be due on Wednesday. And then number 2 is gonna be due on Monday, and you're gonna turn it into Moodle. Is that not here?
Sorry, say it one more time.
Sure. This first one, payroll practice problem number 1, is due on Wednesday, hard copy in here. We're gonna go over it. We're gonna go over your homework for chapter 4, and we're gonna do some review for the quiz. Then Friday's the quiz. This Friday will be proctored, and it'll be everything we've covered in chapter 4. Fit, that flow chart I just did, grossing up. And then that next Monday, we don't have class, but practice payroll problem number 2 is due to Moodle by class time, 11 o'clock.
On the Moodle?
So here's Moodle. Here's Moodle, and the first one's up, and I'm going to turn the second one on right now and make a, where are we? Payroll practice problems right here.
And what are homework solutions for chapter 4?
We are going to do that together on Wednesday. So I'm going to make a link right now for the payroll problem number 2, and that'll be due by 11 o'clock on Monday. Everybody's comfortable submitting, right? And the 23rd is Monday, right? By 11 a.m. They're each 12 points. And that's all I got to say about that. We will see you on Wednesday.